Hello everyone, Catherine here. Long time no video. It's been a pretty busy season of life for me, so I haven't had time to make any videos, let alone any internet content at all, basically. If you don't know, I recently moved across the country from one side of Japan to the other. That was a lot. Got a new job, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm having a great time. I actually finally have some time to do creative things for myself again, which I didn't have at my old job. I was really busy. So with that new free time, I've been working on a project that I wanted to finish like almost 2 years ago now. And that is a deep dive into the Bella Sara Iceberg. If you don't know Iceberg memes, this really isn't the video for you. I'm not really going to be explaining it here, but I will say that I made my own Bella Sara Iceberg. I do have to give a lot of credit before I start to Poppy, who made her own Bella Sara Iceberg, but she inspired me to make one of my own, using some similar points and some new things as well. When I saw her original Bella Sara Iceberg, I got really excited because the lore part of Bella Sara is what I really enjoy. I love all the little details and the fun little things you can learn about it, so I wanted to create my own and share it with you. Hopefully in this video you could learn something new about Bella Sara along the way. So I won't waste any more time, let's jump right in and take a look at the Bella Sara Iceberg. Also, I would just like to say that I did try to record this with better video quality, but it didn't work and I got really frustrated, and so now you have my webcam. Thank you. Sorry. Enjoy! This iceberg has 6 layers, just because that's the number that I chose. So let's start with the first layer, of course. On the first layer, we have something that a lot of people know, and that is Bella Sara's name and the reason behind it. I'll be referring to the creator of Bella Sara simply as the creator, although I will flash her name here because I do not know how to pronounce this name, and I am so sorry. I only speak English and a little bit of Japanese, so I'm not even going to try. I will butcher it. But the story behind this name is that the creator's daughter was named Sarah, and her horse was named Bella. And the creator decided, in honor of her daughter, who really loved horses, she would put the names together to make the name Bella Sara. So it's a touching story about how the series got its name. The next thing is about the creator herself. If you don't know much about the creator of Bella Sara was a social worker in Denmark, and she was inspired to make the idea of a trading card series specifically catered to young girls after seeing the success of other card series like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And other similar things. She wanted something that would be focused on girls' interests, as well as being motivational, inspirational, and uplifting in general, which is why each card has its own inspirational quote. There's a quote from her in New York Times where she said, "Girls like something beautiful, something nice to look at. My purpose in making the sayings on the cards is to inspire children to think in a loving, caring, and joyful way, to believe it is okay to show your feelings." Most of the other things on this tier are about merchandise and what the series itself consisted of, so I'll just go over those very quickly. Although the main draw of Bella Sara was the card series, the merchandise associated with the card series varied greatly. There were a lot of extra things created other than just the card series, but when it does come to the cards, you might not be aware that there were a lot of promotional cards, also called promos. They were created for the series, and they ranged from being included in various merchandising sets, like tins and other similar things, to being distributed at specific retailers. You can find out more about promos on the wiki if you're interested. The other aspect here is magical friends. These are unique little creatures and animals that were created for the series. They look like animals sometimes, but they also can look very different, and they were created uniquely to the game and are not creatures that you will see anywhere else. The most popular ones tend to be things like citrus stacks, which I think are really adorable, as well as others like tassel mice, which you might see a lot, and many, many others, including some questionable and interesting designs. There are a ton of magical friends, and again, they're all listed on the wiki if you're interested to learn about each one. Some of them had horse companions, others were created for merchandising, and sometimes just for promoting a series in general. The next thing is the online game. The online game was something that was added later to the overall series of Bella Sara, and included two components. One is a website that was created where you could take care of your horses and a stable, as well as play different mini games. They were various different kinds, from matching games to art games and many other things. This was the first website, and it's also referred to as the original website. The second part of this is the actual online game, which refers to Bella Sara Adventures, which was a digital open world type game similar to a lot of other digital games at the time, like Webkins and Club Penguins or Animal Jam, those sorts of things. It involved moving around a character that you customized and going on various quests that were basically fetch quests, where you got to meet different horses and characters, buy clothes and items, and plant some plants, which would restore magic to North of North. The game was pretty bare bones, and by the end it was not being maintained, so it had a lot of issues and bugs. But it was pretty popular with a lot of kids who were interested in the series. It was something fun and intriguing for them to do. Chibis refers to a series of cards that was created, as well as a merchandising series connected to that, which capitalized off of the chibi movement in Japan, which, if you don't know, it's basically making a cuter version of a character with larger features and smaller proportions. It's just meant to look overall very cute. They did sell some toys to go along with the chibi cards. There were many different individual characters created in this cute, tiny style. And then, of course, the card series itself was meant to be played as a game. You can still find this card series around and collect it. I personally own a lot of all the chibi cards that I bought off of eBay, although they're not really my favorite. The art style is kind of bland. Website changes refers to a number of things, such as adding of Bella Sara Adventures to the website, as well as changes to some games that were removed or added. But most of all, it refers to the most recent website change in 2020, where Flash went down and the website was completely replaced with a new website by the creator that just features images of cards and some other aspects like music and some books you can read online. By now, I think almost everyone knows that when Flash died, all Flash games died. But at the time, there were a lot of people, including angry moms and some casual fans that hadn't looked for the website in a while, that were really surprised to see it go. But the reason is just that simple. Flash died, and so the game was discontinued and replaced with a new site. Okay, so now we're delving into Tier 2. These are things that maybe if you were not directly involved with following the company's movements closely, especially in recent years, or even when you were collecting in the past, you might not know these things. But some of them are still a little well known, so this might not be all new to you. The first thing here is the Mythology series. Mythology is a series that was actually a combination of the series of Ancient Lights and Northern Lights. The two were put together into one massively large card series with 110 cards. This series was released in European countries only, so if you were in European countries when this was released, chances are this is not new to you. But for those of us who were buying cards in other countries, this might be a surprise to hear. These cards featured the exact same artwork with an identical border to Ancient Lights around all of them. Because of this identical border, a lot of these cards get put into circulation mistakenly by those who don't know, marketed as Ancient Lights cards. However, they have a different numbering system and were released in different languages as well, making them unique from Ancient Lights cards. Apps refers to a number of mobile apps that were created by the Bella Sara company at various different times. 2 apps were originally created around 2012. We don't know much about their creation or who created them, but we do know what their content was. One was the Treasures Hunt app, which was basically a cuter version of the Treasures Hunt minigame from the website. And you could play it, and it had the same functions as that game, with a few new levels and a few new tweaks here and there. There was also the Bella Sara app, which was basically just a trading card app. I've never used it myself, but from what we know from other people who've used it and images and other things that have been archived, you could basically just trade cards and collect them there digitally, and kind of keep track of your collection, as well as a few other minor things. There was also a recent app that was released in 2020, which I actually do have. It's another card collecting app. I think it's fairly similar to the original app, to be honest. In it, you can collect cards, but only from the Best of Bella Sara series, and you can also listen to music there and watch the Bella Sara movie. However, most of these, if not all of these features, are available for free on the current Bella Sara websites. I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying it unless you're a big Bella Sara fan and you want to support the creators. In that case, you might find it worthwhile. The classic box set refers to a set of cards that was released, of course called the classic box set. It was a gift box of sorts. It had all of the treasures, royalty, and Bella's ball cards in it, but it had no shiny cards at all. It also had some really big jumbo cards of the legendary horses. The series was considered unique not because of the cards released, but because each of the cards released was seen as somewhat of a version 2 of the original cards. They had a small symbol of Bella's head on the bottom that marked them as being part of this set. Although they're the same cards as the other series, a lot of people collect them separately, myself included, because they do have that different symbol on them, making them a little bit unique. There's also some unique issues with this card series, but I'll get into that in another tier. Bellapedia was an online Wikipedia of sorts on the Bella Sara website, but specifically for various horses, but not all horses. In addition to images of the horses, it also had information about that horse and the lore behind it, or other historical information that might be relevant to that horse. For the Ancient Lights and Northern Lights horses in the Bellapedia, that were named after mythological beings, they shared the different stories and myths behind them. For Native Lights horses, they provided information about the tribe's history as well as current information, so you could learn about what that tribe does today. Of course, these days, Bellapedia is completely shut down when the original website closed, but all archived images of it do exist on the wiki, so if you are interested, you can check it out and see even exactly how the original page looked, as well as reading all of the information there. Online exclusive horses refers to a couple different horses. Examples are like Peter, and a unique horse that was released for a Christmas celebration named Ronnie. These horses were released only for the website and could be accessed through various codes or different events that were provided at different times. For example, Peter was available by default in your stables as a sort of welcome gift, and Ronnie was available with an exclusive code for a short amount of time. As such, these horses never had a card, and a lot of people aren't aware of them. Promo availability by stores refers to the fact that, of course, promos were shipped to specific stores to be distributed, but because they were shipped to specific stores, this could occasionally make some of them extremely rare. In some cases, these promos were shipped off to big retailers like Target or Walmart. These places aren't so rare, right? Many people would buy cards there. So there's going to be a lot of them, and these cards are easy to obtain. But some cards were sent off to slightly more obscure places, or they had to be purchased through more obscure means. For example, you could achieve them by purchasing certain merchandise that may not be available in every store. And in other cases, you had to go to specific, more niche stores to purchase them. Merchandise refers to the massive amounts of merchandise released by the Bella Sara company. And by massive, I mean massive. They released anything you can think of, from tins, which have cards inside, to various other things like DVDs, more tins, books, many books in various languages, silly bands, clothes, plushies, toys, sand toys, mouse pads, various other things, and the list goes on and on. There is so much merchandise, and a lot of it was only available in Europe. But you can still access all of it on the wiki and take a look for yourself at the many different things that the company made over the years. Obscene amounts of native and ancient lights is exactly how it sounds. It is a large amount of Native Lights and Ancient Lights cards that were produced. Ancient Lights is by far the worst offender. We often joke in the community that there are so many we could make an entire flooring out of them, like this person did with their trading cards. We've also had some people make many different projects with them, like creating special holo cards, or this person who created armor out of it for their dog. There's just so many of them. Everybody always has some extra Ancient Lights cards on hand if they trade cards, and a lot of unsuspecting people will be kind of suckered into buying mass amounts of Ancient Lights cards, only to find that these cards are basically worthless. Native Lights is not quite so bad, but there's quite a lot of them as well. They were another series that was similarly overproduced. Reused artwork and gender inconsistencies is something that's not so well known across the board, but if you're interested in this series, you've probably seen at least one of these. I think when we were kids, some of us figured these out as well, and we got really excited, like, oh, I'm a detective, I figured this out on my own. But actually, it's pretty easy to see. Examples of these are like Misla, which had her card reused multiple times with the exact same line art, just different colors. Pink Lady's card, which is actually reused from another horse called Hunter, is one of the more popular of these reused art and gender inconsistencies. Because this artwork was reused, it created an interesting inconsistency where Pink Lady's name is clearly Pink Lady, making her a female. However, her original card art, she appears as a stallion. Because of this, a lot of people in the community like to speculate or headcanon that she is a trans mare. Personally, I don't think that this was the case. As fun as it would be to believe that your headcanons are accurate, I think what's more likely is that the company just made a mistake trying to pump out more art. However, it is fun to think about, and it is fun to make little headcanons, and it's very interesting to see how many times they reproduce the same art over and over again and totally got away with it. Now we're jumping into Tier 3. Tier 3 is where things start to get a little more interesting. This is going to be things that most likely, unless you're a big fan, you won't know. And this is where I start to get excited about stuff. This is the kind of thing I'm interested in. So first we have obscure lore. Now lore is my favorite thing about the series. Although I will admit, even though it's interesting, the lore is all over the place and not very consistent. It's also hard to find, as it can be found in every aspect of the series, and really important details about something can be found in something as minute as a sticker book or on a promo card or something like that. So there's a lot of obscure lore. The most obscure lore would have to be the PDF book Emma and the Lost Herds that was only released on PDF, and we don't know why. Here are a few random ones that are my favorite from various different sources. For example, there are giant ice storms in North of North that produce valuable crystals called ice gems that can be found and used and are very rare and valuable. They have their own version of Christmas in North of North called a Winter Festival, where every year festival fairies used to decorate Tyrell's End, but after Sigga left, they no longer do that anymore. And speaking of Sigga, there's a whole backstory about her falling in love with the mortal man and ending up dying for him. It's kind of intense for a kids' card series, to be honest. There's just so many interesting and little things that you can find here and there, and some of them are a little intense. For example, if a horse dies on Earth, it can come to live on North of North and is reborn in spirit of sorts. An example of that is the horse Dowager that dies in childbirth, which is just a little intense for a kid's series, but, you know, it's interesting. There's also just fun little details that make the world seem more fleshed out and real. For example, every creature of North and North has a magical aura. Horses communicate with this kind of mind magic speech. There are these things called green roads, where horses with plant magic can sense them and ride across large areas in a forest, bypassing large sections of land. And there's just all kinds of fun little things. There's so much lore, in fact, that we have an entire page in the wiki dedicated to just those random obscure facts that don't fit anywhere else. And if you like, you can check it out there. Foals 2017 refers to a series of cards that was released to try and restart the series again after they had separated from their past company they worked with. It was a set of 6 cards that was released and included the legendary horses as well as the horse Sira for some reason, which I don't know. Also, each card was very differently designed and included a larger section on the bottom with a quote and a picture of various characters, including Sarah, Colm, Emma, Ivena, and Ivena's wolves, and so on. This series also includes something else that will be relevant later on in the Iceberg, but I won't touch on it now. But besides that, the designs were quite different, and they featured baby versions of the legendary horses instead of adult versions. The series was sadly never released to stores and was only given to various retailers as a sort of demo to see if they would be interested in selling it. For one reason or another that we don't know about, it was never actually produced. Dreamer is a promo horse, like I mentioned earlier. However, Dreamer gets her own section because this horse, although not just a promo, is one of the most popular and rare promos. The horse's original design came from one of the original Bella series that were released in Denmark and other countries. The horse was then remade as a promo for Ancient Lights. It was produced only in North America and was sent to Justice stores specifically, and only during November of 2007, as far as we know. Because of this really limited run, it's one of the most rare cards you can find. And because of its rarity, for better or worse, a lot of people want it. It goes for really high prices sometimes. I've seen some sold for as high as $400. And these are just people within the community fighting for it themselves. There's no demand for this card outside of the community. It is a very beautiful card. The art by Jennifer Meyer is really nice. But don't get me wrong, despite its beauty, I'm not going to pay $400 for it, so most likely I'll never own it. Events refers to a number of events that were run by the Bella Sara company. Most of these were run with the intention of sharing merchandise. For example, there are events where they attended various toy fairs where the Bella Sara company was present, showing their various toy horses and other things. But there's also a set of events that were held, mostly from 2006 to 2009 in the US, and they were different conventions where Bella Sara had a large role. Some of these conventions actually included well-known celebrities. I don't know how they managed to get these celebrities, but they did, and you can find images of them at these events. There were also a couple of online events, like the Quest for the Lost Horse and Family Reunion, that involved getting cards from various retailers that were selling promo cards and using codes from those cards to collect different things and get different rewards solely online. Okay, mistakes and misprints is a really fun little bit of trivia. Some of these are just mistakes that collectors will come across in printing that happen. For example, collectors might come across printing mistakes where the card was misprinted off to the side, or the cards were torn apart at a wrong point, or things like that. However, these are considered misprints, and misprints happen with any kind of card series. However, there is some misprints that were consistent across the entire series. The most famous example is Jewel's card in the Box Classic set. The art used in the Classic box set is actually not the correct art for the series it's used for. The card that has the misprint is from the royalty section of the Classic box set, but the art used on the royalty card is actually from her Treasures release. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is that the art is, for some unknown reason, the wrong size, leaving a large yellow border at the bottom. No one's really sure exactly how this misprint made it in and why it didn't get caught, but it remains a unique card, and some collectors look for it just because of its unique misprint. Magazine refers to a number of magazines actually that were created for the series. Unfortunately, none of these magazines were released in English, but they were released in Czech, French, German, and Russian. The magazines themselves included different games, pictures, little toys that would come with them, and other things like articles and quizzes and other stuff. Horse types refers to the fact that there are various groups of horses within the Bella Sara universe. Of course, there are things like
Unicorns or water horses, also known as hippocampuses or pegasuses, these are not original to the Bella Sara universe. However, there are some unique horse species that were made directly for the series. Examples of these are root ponies, hot bloods, and spice horses. There's also horses that only saw one horse of this type, such as a dynasty horse, an equine water elemental. Again, you can find all of this information on the wiki as well as some fan categories that we've made to kind of group horses together by type. This next one is about Haruki. Haruki is the most well-known mystery of Bella Sara, and I'm actually re-recording my original audio that I made ages ago just for this section. The reason for that is because until recently, this card was completely a mystery. Let me set the scene. For Treasures, 2 promo cards supposedly meant to be released. We know this because the one promo card we do have, Lily, is numbered promo 2 of 2, indicating that there had to have been another promo card. The name Haruki was floating around for years, but nobody could really say where it came from. Some people said they saw it on an unofficial checklist, other people said they saw it in an announcement beforehand, but other than that, nobody knew anything. However, recently on the Discord server, one of our users, named Nimya, was able to get in contact with one of the artists who work for Bella Sara. His name is Jeff Labenstein, I believe, or Labenstein. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce his name. Regardless, this artist was able to confirm a lot of information that we had. I'll put up here the official picture. This is the picture that was created for Haruki. According to the artist, this card was in production, and of course this image was completely made and ready to go. However, it was never released. Unfortunately, any attempts to contact the Bella Sara company about Haruki are always ignored or kind of left with inconclusive information and shrugged off. So maybe we'll never know exactly what happened here. But it is kind of nice to have this image, so thank you very much to Nimya. It's really exciting to kind of lay part of this mystery to rest. The e-game starter box is a booster pack or booster box that was released for the original Bella series, which was silver, gold, and copper respectively. The card box design is pretty cool. It's got a holographic print on it, but the reason it's so far down on the list here is because it was only released to Scandinavian countries. It was not released to the US or any international audiences at all, so it's a lot less well known. The website shut down in 2016 refers not to the modern website, revamping after Flash died, but rather to a period of time in 2016 where the website was apparently not active and completely shut down. Some records of this exist within comments from people, especially on the official Facebook page of all places. There's a lot of moms complaining, "Why is the site down? When will it be back up?" And then there's a post from the actual creator herself saying, "Sorry, the site was down, but it's back up again." Apparently, according to them, this happened because the creator had ported the site from, I'm guessing, the original creator's hidden city, and then ported it to Denmark, where she was then in complete control of the website. The official forum and Penny's blog I put together, although they are two different things. The official forum was a website released by Bella Sara to be a place to have fans talk to each other, because the original website didn't have any kind of chatting function or ability to communicate. The original website was solely single player with no friend interaction, but the forums allowed fans to talk together and share information. It's unknown exactly what was on the forum, but we can find a few archives of it and some information in images. It seems to just be a regular forum, like was popular at the time. Penny's blog is connected because it was originally the way to give updates for the company. It was quite unique. It was written as if the character Penny Inkwell was speaking, and each of the updates was in a form of a blog post or a news article that she wrote, which was in character and canon to the character. It included various important updates, such as introductions of the character Belissa. For some reason, it was only run for a short time before eventually being closed, and it was just a regular blogspot site. After that, the site was ported onto the forums, and the same kind of posts were posted there until the forum itself shut down eventually. Card prices refers to a more recent development in the community. I mentioned it already, but this phenomenon is not as one-off as it would seem. The community is so small, and we're all buying from each other, and people can choose how much they want to charge, and other people are often just willing to pay it to get that one card that they really want, regardless of how high the price is. So, for example, I used to sell cards for 50 cents a piece. I don't do that anymore. I sell for a couple of dollars a piece usually, but some cards, for reference, have been that low, swinging up to as high as $20 to $30 for a regular card, not to mention $50 to $100 for a promo, and even as high as $400 for something like Dreamer. Now we're jumping into Tier 4. And first up is the McDonald's promos, which have been lovingly dubbed by various people on the Discord and the wiki as McPromos, which I really like a lot, so I'll refer to them here as McPromos. McPromos were a set of cards that were released with small toy horse figurines at the France branch of McDonald's only. Don't ask me why, but France gets a lot of merchandise for Bella Sara for some reason. Maybe it's easy to license there? I'm not really sure. Regardless, they were released and were actually cards straight from the Sunflower series. But instead of inspirational quotes at the bottom, they included lore information and came, of course, with the little toys. Carmina and River were 2 promo horses, but the reason they're this far down on the iceberg is because they were only released internationally, and their cards are really hard to find as a result. Carmina was released as both a Royalty and Herds of North promo, and the same is true for River as well. The Royalty promo was available in different magazines, an Italian magazine and a German magazine to be precise. The North cards were released in a Czech magazine. Because of this, these 2 horses are not so well known, and it's very hard to find a physical copy of them. I've been a long-time collector now, and I've never managed to score either of these cards. Danish Vs Bella refers to a naming convention that, interestingly enough, is something the community completely came up with and just totally messed up the name. Amongst a lot of collectors, including well-known ones, the original series has been referred to as Danish Gold, Danish Copper, Danish Silver, and so on. But in reality, the company name was Bella, and the card series were just titled Copper, Silver, Gold, and so on. So titling them has been difficult, because the International First Series, for example, is a silver card series. So when describing them, someone might call them the Silver Series, but they're really the first series. Because of this, you can't just call the original Bella series by their names, and you also can't refer to it as first, second, and so on series, because those exist already too in the US release and international releases. The wiki uses Bella because it's more accurate, although we do mention Danish on the page, and you'll still see a lot of well-known collector sites referring to them as the Danish series. Mysterious Farah is a book that actually was never released about the horse Farah. We do have a blurb about it, even though it wasn't released, that was listed on sites like Goodreads and Amazon, but the book itself was never sold or released at all. From the looks of it, it seems to be a completed book, so although we'll never know what happens to it, maybe it exists out there somewhere, and maybe someday a manuscript of it will show up. DVD stories. I think I mentioned these briefly when talking about merchandise, but there were quite a few of these. They were released alongside later card series such as Spring Carnival, Summer Camp, and so on. They told the story of the card series with basic animations, or what we might call animations. It was really just beautifully drawn artwork that they then moved around a little bit.
It is said that what is written may never be forgotten, for there is a power in stories that surpasses all of the world's wisdom.
Hello, my name is Penny Inkwell. I'd like to tell you a story about Emma Roland and her quest to find the lost herds. My story begins.
Although it's not quite animation, it did have voice acting from someone reading the story, original music, and then, of course, some beautiful images. You could actually find these and buy these in DVD form, although they were usually around 30 minutes or so. The quality's not so high, but you can actually watch most of them on YouTube, and they do have a lot of lore in them, so if you're interested, it's something cool to check out and learn more about the series. Halloween promos is something that we're still learning more about, so by the time I release this, there could be more information about them being released, and they could be completely denied as an actual card series. But basically, Halloween promos were a set of cards with an orange border and a Halloween theme, so cards like Ghost and Skeleton and so on. These cards were supposedly released as a convention, at least we think so. A few different collectors have a copy of them, but the speculation is that it's either a fan series or totally fake because some issues and inconsistencies exist with the cards. For example, there's the same code on every single card, which could be legit and just made that way just for marketing, or it could be a sign that it's a hoax. We do have information from one collector who was in contact with the creators and said that those cards were sent to them with a bunch of other cards after the company shut down. They might be legit, but we don't know for sure, so until then, we're just speculating. If you have any information about them, please do share. Otherwise, these will continue to remain our current biggest mystery and controversy in the community. Wise Warriors marketing refers to something that I don't actually have screenshots for, but I do know exists because other wiki editors like Poppy have talked to me about it. This is specifically the case that Wise Warriors was marketed for boys. Originally, the series, of course, like I mentioned earlier, was meant to be for girls and girl-focused, very gendered towards girls. But the creator wanted to branch out into something for boys as well, so she created Wise Warriors and gave them, I guess, what she thought was a more masculine feel. You can see cards like Skeleton and Zombie that look a little creepy, or cards that look like they have a kind of warrior fighting theme. It's become a very sought out series by collectors in general because the tone is so different from the rest of the series. The Fylgie Controversy.
Hello everyone, Editing Catherine here. I realized while editing this that I actually completely butchered the entirety of this section by mispronouncing this creature's name. If it's spelled like this, it could be pronounced as Fylge or Fylga. I'm not exactly sure because this pronunciation is actually not standard for what the creature is actually called. It's usually spelled like this. If it's spelled like this, it's the Fylgja. I apologize to anybody who knows about Norse mythology or speaks these languages. I'm trying my best.
So apparently when this horse was released, it caused a little bit of a stir. If you don't know, a Fylgie is a spirit of sorts that guides children. Because of this, the card has the image of a girl lying on the ground, and above the image is a ghostly figure of the horse and the girl herself floating above it. When this card was released, some parents wrote to the company to complain, although it was a small amount. Their complaints were things such as, "Oh my gosh, this is a dead girl in this card. Why is there a dead girl? This is encouraging morbid things." In reality, it's not supposed to be like that, because this kind of spirit is a spirit that appears in your dreams. Farah's father. I mentioned this already, talking about mysterious Farah, but in the book synopsis, it's revealed that Fiona is Farah's mother. However, the father is not mentioned, and since the book was never released, we don't know if it was mentioned in there either. But, like I mentioned before, that's led to a lot of speculation and the Fiona Thunder ship. But there's also been more speculation these days about what other horse it could have been, referencing various cards from different series. And while we're talking about odd birth situations, I want to add in something that's not on the iceberg, but I just want to mention. And that is that the Dew ponies have regular foals on their stable wall listed as their kids. How does that work? So that should give you a hint enough alone that there doesn't really have to be any rhyme or reason to the parents in Bella Sara. So now we're on to Tier 5, and we're going to start with Spring Carnival and Winter Festival promos. This is the same thing as other promos that were mentioned before, where these promos were included in magazines mostly, and were very obscure and hard to find. But the reason these are included so far down is because they are extremely hard to find. By that I mean, for some cards, we only have one image of them that's been circulating around. For example, the Spring Festival promos of Carousel, Kona, and Honora. Additionally, the Winter Festival promos were so rare that for a while we only had a half picture of one, and for many years people weren't sure if they actually existed. When I first started editing on the wiki, we couldn't find confirmation of any of them, and people were asking me, are these cards legit? Do you have any information? And I didn't have any. So until pretty recently, we had no idea. Celeb events I mentioned briefly earlier, but I want to touch on them again because these events are not just events where these celebs visited. These are events where celebrities were the star. For example, the Ashley Tisdale event, she showed up and participated in the activities. Kids wrote down positive messages and she read them out loud for them.
There were also other events like the 2006 Girls' Day Seattle event, which featured Devin Werkheiser from shows like Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and another in 2007 at Gen Con Indy, featuring Hayden Panettiere, I think that's how you say her name, who's been on things like Bring It On and Malcolm in the Middle and the movie Ice Princess, if you remember that.
These are big names that were involved in this little startup company that, in all honesty, never got to be that big. So it's really cool to see. Artist credits refer to the fact that some artists are miscredited on certain Bella Sara cards.
There may be more than one instance of these, but the most well-known one is on the Moon Fairies cards. On 2 Moon Fairies cards, particularly Tiara and Willow Nix, the artist is attributed to be Melinda Beavers. However, we know from Melinda Beavers herself that these cards were actually drawn by Lynn Hogan. We know this because a fan brought these cards to her at an event to sign, and she had to sadly turn them down, declining, saying, "These are not actually my cards." This is actually pretty common in the trading card industry. It sadly happens a lot. When you're printing a lot of things at once, a lot of small errors like this can sometimes fly under the radar.
Emma's backstory refers to 2 things. 1, that her backstory is not well known, and 2, that her backstory continues to change. The official canon backstory is that Emma was born on Earth. Her ancestor was Sigga, which makes her a Valkyrie ancestor. There's a long period of time where Sigga has children, and she can only have male children because she was cursed for falling in love with a human man, which is unfair if you ask me, but whatever. Eventually, Emma is born, breaking the cycle, and is then called to North of North to be their new Valkyrie and save North of North from the forces of evil, as most of us know. But her backstory changes a little bit. Is she aware that she's a Valkyrie? She has this journal that she writes in. When does she write in it? How does she get it? Who does it belong to? It always changes depending on the story that you're reading. I followed the story of the book, although the book also did comb a little dirty, so I don't actually like that story a ton. But the story is always changing, and it's hard to keep up with exactly what her backstory is. The founder's deaths. Now, this is something that if you're following the lore, you might have already seen or read, but not realized. But it's actually confirmed that a lot of herd founders for the different herds are actually dead. It's said they were killed in a battle against the Wolf Riders, and specifically the original Wolf Rider before Ivenna, known as Feral. It's a dark turn to a kid's franchise, and I think a lot of people are surprised when they first hear it, but it is canon. Horses like Icelander are dead. So that's cheery. Moving on to something a little more lighthearted is unreleased horse design. There's a few of these floating around, and interestingly enough, some of them have aspects of them that were used.
For example, there's a magical friend called a tufted trollbuck that was used in the Bella Sara online game and can be found and bought in the Bazaar tent. But its original artwork features a horse that was never released.
There's also some unreleased horse designs that are different from the final design, such as Chaya's original design, which was based off Chinese horse cave paintings and was a very chunky version of the horse. I think it's super cute, but they changed it to be a more standard horse design. There's also Kalas, who is a griffin horse, but the original version of that horse was fully horse and was accidentally leaked online, so there's an unreleased horse image that we have as well for it. Defunct Games refers to a set of minigames that were on the original Bella Sara website that are no longer available. Obviously because the website was shut down, but they were unavailable long before that. There's quite a few of these, including a quiz game, a dressage game, and a few others. We don't know much about most of them, but they were originally released on that original website, and for some reason they were removed when the new website changes came out. survey is referring to a survey that was released on the Bella Sara Facebook page. It was released in 2014, and it was a survey for a new Bella Sara game, which supposedly would probably change the face of Bella Sara completely. Maybe, though. We don't really know. The survey's not been archived, so I don't know what was on it, but it was released and then nothing happened with it. That was the last bit of news that was released for the company for a long time. And it gave people hope that maybe they were going to continue putting out the series and putting out new merchandise.
Myrfor's design refers to the horrific design coming from the Bella Sara movie. In my opinion, it's horrific, but I guess you can make your own judgment. But basically, when the movie was released, they decided for some unknown reason to give this previously really scary, really intimidating wolf character a new human form, and a pretty pathetic human form at that. The community lovingly refers to his new design as Twink Myrfor, which I find pretty appropriate. Why did they do this? I don't know. He's still a wolf, and he sometimes transforms into one in the movie, which makes for these horrific and hilarious screenshots that kind of give me nightmares. Like this one of him eating on the floor, like a dog, but in a human body. But the worst thing is that they took his human face, and on the Foals 2017 card, they placed it on top of his wolf body to make this horrific nightmare fuel.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
It's very poorly photoshopped and, frankly, really hilarious.
Alright friends, we've made it to the last and final tier of the Bella Sara Iceberg. My voice is getting tired, but let's do it. To start this one off, we're going to start with Foals 2013, which is an interesting story. This is a set of promotional cards released for a series that the creator, according to them directly, would still like to release, called Foals. We have around 45 cards that we know of existing, but we don't know if there are more or if we have all of them. The cards feature Foals art from various series, as well as a couple of new pieces of art from spoofs of the legendary horses. We have confirmation they were legitimate from the creators directly, but they were circling around as images before this. Someone in the community saw them and started talking about them, and there was a lot of speculation about if they were legit or not. I actually didn't believe they were legit at first because it just seemed strange. I thought they were a fan series, and my fellow editor, Breezy, was convinced that they were real. She pushed through and got more information about them, despite my reluctance, and she ended up contacting the creators about it and got that confirmation that yes, these are indeed real. The cards themselves have a light pink border and are just like a regular card set. They're pretty cute. But because they were released as this demo, they're super limited and super rare. In fact, I only know of 2 people who own them, and one of them is Breezy, who was able to get her hands on them and confirm they're legit. Valkyrie is an unreleased project that we don't know much about, but we do have promotional images, and we can see that it was some kind of game or movie adaptation. What we do know about it comes from Phil Trumbo, the artist who worked with Bella Sara. The images were made by him and are actually on his website. I actually got in contact with him personally, and he said that from what he could remember, it was a spin-off fantasy story of some sort for the main characters. They were going to be fighting and defeating evil, but he said that it was just concept sketches. My speculation has always been that it was supposed to be maybe like the storybook DVDs or maybe even a movie. But again, the project is unreleased and Phil doesn't remember much about it, so maybe we'll never know. Original website. I've already talked about this multiple times already, but this is to refer to the fact that there was originally a completely different website that could only be accessed by those who had cards from the Scandinavian release. The website was a lot different from its eventual international release. It was a light purple, it was very basic, and it had a few games on it. Very different from the new iteration that would come out. Herd Inconsistencies is an interesting fact that in some of the later card series, horses' herds were just randomly changed for no reason. Sometimes this is purposeful though. There's confirmation that a couple of horses have married into other herds, for example. But a lot of other times it may just be a misprint, or no one was paying attention, or they just weren't checking. I don't know. But there's Inconsistencies, where a horse will randomly change. Russian tins refers to a set of tins that were released that look like those circular butter cookie tins that are actually a sewing kit. You know what I'm talking about, right? They're actually really pretty, and they did come with cookies inside and a special set of stickers, but they were only released in Russia, and they're quite rare. I've never seen one in person, but the images of them look really pretty. If you can ever find one, you might consider purchasing it. It would make a really cool souvenir.
Next up is the 2022 French releases. I actually made this iceberg, as you can obviously see, back in 2020, but there's been some updates since then, and there's actually a 2021 release that I actually will talk about too. These releases are not card releases, and are instead a set of merchandise produced by the company Kiteboard. It's mainly backpacks, but there's also other back-to-school items like agendas and binders. Somehow this company has a contract with the Bella Sara company to produce various merchandise, and they've just been releasing since 2017 until present year, I believe. I don't personally speak French, so it's hard for me to find any information without someone else finding it for me first. But I do know that their official website still holds the Bella Sara license page, so it's possible that they've made new releases even this year.
Sarah's Farewell is a really interesting piece of writing that was only included at the end of the very last Russian magazine to ever be released in 2013.
We only know about it because it was translated by a Russian collector. I'm not sure how accurate the English translation is, but it seems accurate enough, so I'll read it for you now, word for word. Hello and goodbye. I have come to say goodbye to you, because I am leaving North of North. I did not expect this, and did not seek it, but I met my true love. He is not a handsome prince, not a baron or a knight, but he is kind, honest, and loves me with all his heart, just as I love him. I really want us to live happily ever after, just like in a fairy tale. Once upon a time, many thousands of years ago, from immense, desperate grief, I stopped growing up. But now it seems, from happiness, I began to grow again. I hope that soon I will become quite an adult, and someday I will have a daughter who will love horses as much as I do, and will come to North of North to be close to those whom she loves. After all, this is what matters most, isn't it? But what is it? Are you sad? Do not be sad. It is always difficult to say goodbye, but when you know that there is only good ahead, it is a bright sadness, and I leave North of North with such a bright sadness in my soul. I know that Emma will take care of everything as well as me, and you too will be fine, because in our beautiful world, good people will certainly find their happiness. I wish you all the very, very best.
This message again was included in the Russian magazine, and was a kind of closing message before the magazine stopped being printed. It's speculated on whether this is actually canon because there's no information similar to this anywhere else in any part of the series. And if you don't know, it's canon that the reason Sarah is a child goddess is that her parents died when she was young. They were killed by wolf riders, and she's so sad that she cries a lake of tears, and then Bella comes to comfort her, and they become an eternal duo because of that. That's the canon story. It's supposedly the reason why she never ages. So when this story was brought to my attention, I was shocked. There was a Russian collector on the wiki asking, "Is this thing legit? Does anybody know about this?" And everyone had no idea what it was about. As for my thoughts about it, I don't think it's canon, and in fact, I would be pretty upset if it was. And I'll tell you why. If you remember Sigga's story, again, she is basically demonized for falling in love with a man. She loses everything and has to leave North of North. So it seems strange and inconsistent that suddenly Sarah would be okay to give up everything and have a prince and have a happy ever after and not face any consequences for it. It also kind of spits in the face of canon a little bit because Sarah is the thing that keeps the magic of North going, and without her, North of North wouldn't exist. So for her to just randomly get up and leave doesn't seem very consistent. I do like the idea of her being able to grow up and move on from trauma. That seems really nice. But it seems more like it was something written by people in the magazine to make a nice close as to why the magazine was finishing.
Unreleased Toys refers to a set of toys that were showcased at a toy fair, but were never released. These toys were produced by Paradise Kids, who actually made a number of Bella Sara toys. They were displayed at a 2009 event in Hong Kong, and there's a number of toy horses that they showed there. ranging from the legendary horses to Harmony. Interestingly enough, Harmony has her own unique packaging, but all of the legendary horse prototypes have the same packaging with Fiona's name on it. It's unknown why these toys were never released. Their designs are really nice, and I think they would have been a highly collectible item. But for one reason or another, we only have pictures of the prototype versions.
The last one on the list is the mass market controversy. This is difficult to explain to people who don't know about trading cards, so I'll try to explain it in simple terms. Basically, trading cards and card series are usually distributed to hobby shops, especially smaller card series. There's a loyalty amongst those who release them to hobby shops that they give the hobby shops first access to the card series because it gives them more business and keeps them running. When Bella Sara joined with the company Hidden City Games, the company chose to release the cards to places like Walmart, Target, and other mass market stores, as well as hobby shops. Some people seem to feel slighted, thinking, why would you release this to mass market instead of hobby shops? But in the end, the controversy seems to have died down, and for collectors, of course, it didn't really matter. But it was a bit of a controversy at the time when the series was first starting out its distribution with Hidden City Games.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun putting this together, and although it took forever to edit, it was a lot of fun to do and a bit of a challenge for me. I hope you could also learn some new things, and if you'd like to find me around on the internet, as always, you can find me on any social media as Forest and T for my Mori K content and Japan life content. If you want to see more Bella Sara things, then I recommend checking out the wiki, and also you can find me on the Bella Sara Discord along with our amazing community there. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it and thank you so much. Also, I just want to add as a post-editing note, if there are any things that you think should have been on this iceberg, or points that you didn't know, or maybe your favorite trivia about Bella Sara, please share it in the comments below. I love to read your guys' comments, and I'm excited to see what makes you excited about the world of Bella Sara. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!